Hey everyone, welcome to Fandom Family Chats. I'm your host Jeanette, and today I am joined by Maureen.
Hello.
Amanda.
Hello.
Tiffany.
Hello.
And our very special guest star, Todd Stashwick, who
I said good day.
he played Father Kieran on the originals. So we're really excited to talk with you today.
Cool. I'm excited to chat with you all.
We're big originals fans.
We
I
are.
think all of us prefer the originals to the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, you do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
What I liked about it was a gangster show, and that's what I kind of dug.
I like the storylines better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I honestly love both of them, but I don't know, the originals caught my attention more with the storylines.
Like I said, it felt more, I mean, it's essentially The Sopranos. I mean, it felt more, premise driven, I should say.
Yeah.
As opposed to just sort of and take nothing away from Vampire Diaries, but which was more of like just a soup of relationships, and just the idea that you had these warring factions vying for control of the city. It's like, I think there was a way into it that was a little less, dare I say, soapy, than Vampire Diaries.
That's what I liked about it too. Actually, I didn't know about the originals until Jeanette told me about it. Because I had been a vampire, and it was just this year I found the originals. I'm not even that far into it yet.
I know.
But it was the history that the Mickelsons brought to the Vampire Diaries, and I loved that. It just felt more meaty, and I loved that aspect of it. So Jeanette actually turned all of us onto the originals. She's responsible for our love of it.
Wise Jeanette.
Don't let that go to your head.
You know I will. It's okay.
All right, so we just have some questions for you.
I have answers, I hope.
I have faith in you.
So have you
I'll do
always...
it. I'm not Catholic. I was going to bless you, but
It's a valiant effort.
That works.
Yeah. And it was just some sort of crossy gesture.
Just move your hands in a quick circle.
So I
No one
leaned
will
in,
notice.
yeah,
There
like
you go.
Windex, yeah.
So did you always know you wanted to be in the entertainment industry, or how young were you when you decided you wanted to be an actor?
I was that kid that always gravitated towards story, and so even as a wee little stashling in the city of Chicago, I was my first fandom was my cousin giving me Star Trek action figures in 1974, right? And so I had already been leaning into science fiction, fantasy, as well as comedy, and then play acting, and then Star Wars hit, and so then it was all about Star Wars action figures. So I was always, making up scenarios and telling stories and playing different parts and connecting to that. And then while all that was happening, I was doing a lot of drawings of those, and I was going to be a graphic artist. I was going to be a cartoonist and maybe like a comic strip artist. And then I noticed I was really lousy at taking notes on my drawing. I'm like, that's inside of my head, and you're critiquing it, and you're wrong because you don't know what it looks like inside. I mean, lo and behold, as a more mature person, I'm like, no, they're trying to guide you to help you get your ideas in your head out better. But while that was all going on around, and through all of it, my cousin and I and my sister, we would put on plays in our garage and do shows and puppet shows, so I was always leaning into it, doing impressions of Elvis for my mom. Like, I was always that kid. I was always a extroverted loud boy. And I think around junior year, I realized that I really enjoyed the social aspect of theater. I really enjoyed playing characters, and man, applause is addictive. And so it was a much louder art form, and I was a much louder person. And so it also was a dynamite way to meet girls. So it really, and I have two children now because of my stage time, because I met my wife. I was doing a show. So
was she an audience member or was she a castmate? Audience member. There you go.
So I was like David Lee Roth on the stage, like
You're scoping them out from the stage.
But then she made the first move, so bless her heart.
Okay.
I married my stalker. But so yeah, I think around junior year is when things really turned towards going, you know what, I think I'm not going to do art. I'll keep art as my private art thing, and then I think as a career I'm going to head towards acting. So that was around 16, 17 years old, because at that point you're already trying to point your arrow towards college, and then it's like, okay, now what college? I should go to theater school because that makes the most sense, and have a place where you can make all your mistakes. Boy, I'm incredibly orange in this room. It's a autumnal.
There you go. See?
Yeah. So that, yeah, I mean, I pretty much charted my course from 17 years old forward.
Mm-hmm.
That was a long answer to a short question.
We like the long answer.
We like it.
Yeah.
So is drawing something you still sort of dabble in?
I do. I dabble in all kinds of art. I draw, and I do Photoshop, and like I said, I do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and so there's painting and modeling, building and map drawing, and so I'm constantly engaged in some form of visual arts. Right now, my wife is turning our house yard into a Scooby-Doo theme for. This is why she's sawing wood. I think, were you doing a moon, baby?
Yeah.
She's doing a moon that we're going to project bats onto. And so there's always some sort of creative project going on in the house. My daughter making costumes. My son he's graduated college. He's an animator. So this is, we always joke that our kids were going to run away and join the office, because they're born in the circus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's always some form of creative art, and then some of the work that I do involves me making artistic visual decisions, whether I'm the one doing the art or not. I'm giving notes on art, or I'm overseeing a project. I just published a book that has a lot of art in it, so I was working with the artists on that. So yeah, it's visual arts is very important to me, even though it wasn't my chosen profession. But I know enough about it so that I feel I can give a bit of an educated notes and thoughts on it, as well as, there's a lot of gut check in the work that I do. So yeah, so I do still spend a lot of time in visual arts, whether I realize it or not. Didn't think about it as much until you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too that with acting, like, these girls all know, but my favorite form of acting is nonverbal acting. And I think that's a visual art. I mean, acting itself is visual art, but the way you have to completely give yourself, your facial expressions, your body, your mind, all that over into the role is, I think,
it is a visual art. Yeah. I mean, cinema it's moving pictures. So yeah, it's a visual art. Very much. Do
you write at all? I don't know. I get like a storyteller vibe from you.
I do. I wrote a pilot for the Sci-Fi Channel. At one point, I was a co-writer for Suicide Squad 2.
Oh wow!
But then the whole project went over to James Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
I co-wrote a Star Wars video game that EA put the kibosh on at one point, but I spent 3 years writing on that. I just had the trailer for a video game that I co-wrote, came out last week, actually.
Oh.
A game called Forspoken that I co-wrote. I'm currently writing on another video game that I can't talk about. And then I wrote a book.
Oh, wow.
It's a Dungeons and Dragons themed cocktail book.
Oh,
that's awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah, so I do a lot of writing, and then I've written screenplays and TV pilots and a lot of D&D. I write a lot of D&D. That's going to come up a lot. But yeah.
That's right. There's a wide market for that.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm learning.
So can you tell us about?
These are my favorite coffee mugs, by the way. My wife got me them.
What it is?
Well, it's a weird. I call it where the wild mugs are, because it sort of looks like something Maurice Sendak would draw.
Yeah.
but it's this. It's sort of the nature looking cartoony weird little pine cone slash pineapple slash tree bark, but it holds my Java, and that's all that matters.
I can't
I
do a
like
podcast without coffee. I always have coffee in my hand when we're doing these.
Oh yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about your role as Father Kieran, you know, if there were any challenges to playing that role, if you found any similarities.
Well, I remember
between...
going in, I went in for the audition, and it was, you know, it's always one of those moments where you know enough about the industry, and then you're often surprised, because I go in and I'm auditioning for a CW show, which already uh, I go in and there's just model perfect human specimens in this auditioning for this thing. So I'm like, well, you know, I'll go and I'll do my thing, even though like I just know that CW tends to cast far more beautiful people than myself. But I'm like, I might as well pick up that bat and swing it. And I honestly, I did not think that I mean, I enjoyed the audition, and I liked the character. I thought there was something kind of cool and progressive about this priest. I thought he, you know, he was the peacemaker of, and I often play villainous types, and so it was the chance to kind of be the voice of reason and not be a villain. And there was a sweetness to him and a toughness to him that I dug. And it was I was intrigued by it because of all of those things. I had not been a watcher of Vampire Diaries. I do consume a great deal of genre television. That was just one that sort of fell through the cracks. But yeah, so then I went down to Georgia to film, and then just met this amazing cast and these lovely writers, and working with Leah Pipes as my niece. You know, there was so much that I did with her specifically, and then Joseph. Just tremendously talented humans, and the writing, there was, no pun intended, a lot to sink your teeth into. I mean, it again, what I dug about it is it wasn't soapy. It was like The Sopranos. So you know, there was something very, for lack of a better term, very masculine about the show. In that gangster way. Like it was Goodfellas, it was Godfather. I mean, and so when I grokked that I was kind of the Robert Duvall of The Godfather in this, I wasn't any one of them, but I was the guy that could float in between all of the factions and hopefully find a way to bridge gap, because I cared about my city, and I cared that it wasn't going to get torn apart by these monsters. And so I had to find a direct path to try and bridge that gap. And of course, it blows up in your face, as all good dramas should, with my curse, my hex. But yeah, so the process was, I mean, he was a beleaguered human, right? He was a person who had way too much responsibility placed on his shoulders, and you know, in many ways it affirms his faith, because, you know, if devils exist, then certainly does the God, right? He wasn't having a crisis of faith necessarily. I think he was just questioning God's choices amongst the abominations.
Yeah.
Now, I know that your character's death was very difficult. I know that Jeanette and Tiffany both have said that they cried during your death, and how much you deserve better. And if this universe has taught us anything, it's to always ask, they're just dead for right now, right? They're gonna come back at some point, right?
He didn't. No, I was a vampire for about 5 minutes, and then I got the steak. Yeah, he didn't come back. Never came back, and the show went on for many seasons, and he didn't come back. Which, in some ways, it's good soapy genre stuff if a character comes back, but it's really good drama if death is final.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's realistic too.
It's true stakes, right? No pun
Mhm.
intended. It's really true. The stakes are real if these characters are dead, gone dead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you have
Indeed.
any favorite memories from your time on set?
There was one day where I decided in real time I was going to judge Daniel Gilly's performance for him while he was acting, and we were like having a council table.
Did he
And
know
so
you were
he
going to
had,
do that, or was that just something you decided on the spot to do?
I let him know ahead of time.
Okay.
I just said, just so you know, I'll be marking my feelings about your performance during your monologue. I'll be at the end of the table. And so he literally is a very long table set up in the church, and he's at the head, and he's giving a very eloquent monologue. And I sat back there just kind of giving him a floating gauge of how he was doing during his acting. So I'd be like, and just watching him try to maintain a straight face through that entire time while I was silently judging him. That was really fun. One of the first nights that I was there, driving back, Transpo was driving us all back to our perspective, it's like base camp or something, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was Charles and myself in the van, and Don't Stop Believin' came on the Transpo van radio, and per law of the land, I think you have to crank it and sing the song
Yes.
at the top of your lungs.
Any Journey
And
song.
so, and so Charles and I just belting out, I'm sure just begging the ire of that poor Transpo driver, as Charles and I were singing Don't Stop Believing at the top of our lungs. Joseph and I always had a great time. They would have me over for dinner, and we'd play video games. Because I was displaced, I was away from home. My home base was LA, and Atlanta was where I shot, and I shot off and on for, I think I did like 11 episodes over the course of a year. So I was at least there once a month.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes 2 episodes back to back, but it was a year of my life, which is no small shake. Spent off and on in Atlanta. I think of other things specific, and what was this, 2013, right? Oh my, that was 8 years ago.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I loved I think my favorite 2 scenes to shoot were after I kind of woke up, and he had turned me, and I woke up and he's sort of laying it out for me, and I'm there with Leah, Cammy, and he's laying out for me the reality of my situation, and it was this kind of quiet, beautiful scene. And then the other scene that I loved is there's a scene that he and I have in the church where Joseph and I are just sitting there like 2 old soldiers, just exhausted at the war that we all have to fight, and there's this kind of level of mutual respect between these 2 old warriors, and it was really it was fun, and Joseph is Joseph and I have maintained friendship since. He's actually been to the Nerd Lair and played D&D. And
that's a sign of a real friendship if they've been to the Nerd Lair.
I worked with him on another project that never came to light, but it was just so we've you roll dice together. That's it's an unbreakable bond. It just, and then the conventions and the other friendships that shows brought me, that I didn't work with, Paul Telfer and some of the other cats that I worked with on the show, that I've met just from the convention circuit, and it's brought me to England. Like it's been like one of those shows that has always come back and given me more gifts long after I took a stake to the heart.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it will do
Oh, I
that.
also remember improvising on the set, and they were like, "No, that's too over the top." I'm like, "Trust me, it's going to make it to the cut." And that's when I licked Cammy's blood off the knife, and
Yeah.
they did not want that. I don't think they're like, "Oh, that's awful." I'm like, but it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And they're like,
I
yeah.
agree. I agree.
He's like
It was
officially
awesome.
in like Darkland, and I had the knife in front of me, and it's just sugar water, right? So I'm like,
Mhm.
and they're like, and you could just hear them like loving it, going, "Whoa!" And then and then they're like, "Okay, just give me one where you don't do that." I'm like, "Trust me, the editors are gonna leave that one in the cut,"
Mhm.
and they did.
They did.
Uh, so yeah, so there was, yeah, it was just a. I think my favorite line is after they slaughtered all of the like the townspeople in the bar, and I'm like, how am I supposed to remake the mayor after he's like in five pieces? I love
Right.
that line. That was like, it could not have been more of a Stashwick thing to say. It was very funny. It was really fun. And then working with like Julie and Marguerite and Michelle Paradise and Michael, like Narducci. I think I ran into all of them at Comic Con all at once. So I'm at this party at, okay, so it's a two-pronger story.
Okay.
First part of the story was, do you have time?
Oh
yes,
yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
please.
So the first part of the story, I've told it before, but it's one of my favorite things. We were invited. I was at Comic Con for 12 Monkeys, and we were invited to go to uh, the Entertainment Weekly party, which was on the rooftop of the Hard Rock Hotel, and it was one of those kind of parties where the elevator door opens and Jamie Lee Curtis walks out. She's like, "You don't want to go up there," and so I'm like, "Oh, whatever." So then, and when Jamie Lee Curtis is telling you not to go someplace, you might take heed. But anyway, uh, so we get on the elevator, my wife and I, and then the door opens up, and the place is just packed with humans, like just all trying to get to the sign-in door, and then and they're all easily 15 years younger than me, and I'm like, I am not going to elbow my way through a bunch of millennials just to get to a party. Um, and but I look beyond in the party, I see like cast members of mine at this party, and so I'm like, and then like I turn and like Danielle Panabaker's there, and I'd done a Disney Channel movie with her called I'm gonna take that glare. What? Here we go. I'd done a Disney Channel movie with her, and so she's like, "Todd," I'm like, "Danielle," and then I turn and there's like the Teen Wolf boys, and I had done Teen Wolf. I'm like, "Dylan," and he's like, "Stashwick." So anyway, of course, those guys are just like VIP'd in the party. I'm like, I don't have a handler, so so I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready to pack it up, and then suddenly we hear from this like side door opens, and this woman goes, "Make a path! We have the cast of Gotham coming through!" And then literally a parade of the cast of Gotham is coming through this sea of millennials. And I had a week before shot an episode of Gotham. And so all the people marching past me, they're walking past and they're like, "Stashwick," and then and it's this big parade, and then I look over and they're like, this. So I grab my wife's hand and I jump into the line of Gotham people, and we body surf the cast of Gotham into the party. So then we get to this party, and it was all of pop culture on one roof. Like if you had dropped a bomb, you would have ended popular entertainment for years to come, because it was like, there's the Supernatural boys. I'm dropping names left and right because I, as a nerd, was just in heaven. But I'm literally having a conversation with Peter Capaldi, his Doctor Who, and I look over his shoulder, and I shit you not, Harry Potter's dancing with Arya Stark. Like, that's what this party was. Like Daniel Radcliffe and Maisie
Sounds
Williams were
amazing.
dancing. I'm like, this is like this is nerd heaven. nerd heaven. And it was just everywhere you turned was some nerdy something. And then I go around this corner and there's like Narducci, Julie Plec, like all of the originals creators. And I hadn't seen them for about 4 years. And so it was this lovely reunion of souls on this rooftop at Comic-Con, which is ends up where you end up seeing everybody again anyway, because you all go your separate ways. It's, they call it a showmance. Like you have your little showmance, and then everybody goes their separate ways, and then you get busy with your next showmance, and you don't see each other except for Comic-Con, when everybody comes to the same place to gather and share. And of course, like the Vampire Diaries originals conventions, where that's why we're there, is to hang with each other. But it was I just love those people. I just love Narducci. Like, I love those people.
I love that story. That story is awesome.
Fun, right?
It's blowing my mind to picture Harry Potter dancing with Arya Stark.
Yeah.
And they were like doing the twist. Like it was one of those. It was just everywhere I turned was some corner of nerddom. Everywhere you turn, it was nuts. Like there's Nathan Fillion. Like everywhere you go, and I've been in LA now 21 years, and I've spent a whole lot of time in genre TV, so that somewhere I know one or two of these people, for whatever reason. But it's really fun and crazy, and I almost wasn't able to get in because of all the other people trying to push their way in. But it's a hoot. It was a hoot. I was glad that Gotham showed up to save the day.
to get you to see Harry Potter and Arya Stark.
Harry Potter and Arya Stark doing the Watusi.
So it's funny that you mentioned Dylan and the Teen Wolf guys, because this is another favorite that I have bullied everyone into watching, and we're actually going to be starting a Teen Wolf group really soon too. So do you have any favorite stories? I know that part was smaller, but I imagine that's a fun set to work on as well.
I to what you said, I popped in and out of that show so very quickly. And then and it was a very efficient set, so it wasn't one of those where you found yourself sitting around a lot. And I just do remember those boys, and they were boys at the time. They are now men, but those boys were so collected and kind and funny, and you get a lot of time with people when you're on a set, and so you want them to be kind, and you want them to have a sense of humor, and there's an absurdity to what we do. Like if there weren't cameras pointed at it, it would be really weird. Like, here, go stand here and say this and wear this. Okay. It's very weird, but yeah. So mostly what I remember about that set is the people. Like they were just such great guys. I really enjoyed them, and Shelley was phenomenal, and I just saw her on Mythic Quest, and she was fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, she's really good. She does this really good flashback episode where she essentially plays like an Ursula K. Le Guin. Like she plays an up-and-coming science fiction author in the 60s. And
wow.
It's excellent. That show is excellent, but she's so
What
good.
is it called? Mythic Quest?
Yeah, it's a comedy by the guys that did Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's on Apple TV, and it's about the making. It's about the video game industry.
Okay.
It's a workplace comedy. David Hornsby's on it. Charlotte, I'm going to butcher her last name. Anyway, she's great. She plays a character named Poppy. Ashley Birch, who's actually she's a known video game actress, but she's also a writer and actress on the show. And she's fantastic. It's just a really funny, wonderful, full of heart. It always, you think it's going this way and then it goes that way. It's really smart. And then Shelley Hennig from Teen Wolf has a small but pivotal role in season 2 in a couple episodes. Yeah, she's great.
Okay.
That's something my husband and I would probably watch together.
Yeah.
That's right up his alley. He likes that stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
No, you had also mentioned the conventions. We had talked to Chase Coleman yesterday, and that was the first we had heard, or at least for me, of the conventions that you do in Jersey and Chicago, which you mentioned you're from. Yeah. Is that something that you regularly take part in? Are those?
There was a moment, I think, when Originals was still on the air.
Okay.
I was doing a bunch of them. And then, like Supernatural or any of them, the longer a show's on, the more guest stars they have, and the more the rotation of actors.
Yeah.
I mean, Supernatural went for 15 seasons. I was in season 4. So
yeah,
there's 11 other seasons of guest stars that then rotated to the conventions, and then some are fresher on people's minds. I was lucky that the role I did on that show was very singular. It was a black and white Dracula episode. And so I have not been to an Originals convention in, I want to say, usually 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the last one I went to was in Birmingham, England.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I thought you were going to say Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama.
That's there.
Yep. Birmingham, England.
And I was looking at the Originals yesterday, and they had 476 credited cast members on that show.
I'm saying
that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. Yeah, this is true. But yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to do them if work allows, and if they invite. I've done 4 or 5 Originals Vampire Diaries conventions.
Okay.
And they always end up being fun. There's karaoke. Like they're nuts.
Yeah.
They're bananas, and they're so much fun.
And the people who go to these conventions probably recognize who certain people are, and they just get so excited to be there in the presence of,
I think
the shows.
Yeah, I think what happens is, and I'm a fan as much as anybody of shows. Television touches people differently than films do because it happens in your living room.
Mm-hmm.
You invite these stories into your house, and they there's a power of story, which is it manipulates you against your will, but you willingly go into that contract, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning you suddenly are crying, or you suddenly are laughing. Your emotions, you're field testing emotions without consequence. Like you're mourning the loss of a priest, a very, very handsome priest, and you are suddenly finding yourself crying again against your will because we allow ourselves to empathize with these characters because there isn't consequence. It's not like losing a family member, but it is. But it is without really doing it. So it gives our brain that I always call them. It's a empathy simulator, right? So if I can feel and I can go through the experiences of loss, I am better equipped to do it when it really happens on some very small level. Not to say it's the same, that losing a character that you love on TV is the same as losing a family member, but it's activating similar emotions so that, we field test empathy. Plus, that which will make the world a better place is empathy, right? And so if we can see through other people's eyes and feel for their losses and feel for their gains, then in the real world, we're more apt to be more empathetic to the greater world around us. I don't know where I was going with any of this. But yes, this is where I was going with this. So conventions are a chance in many ways to connect and show gratitude, not to Todd Stashwick, the human being, but to what I represent in the things that have moved people. I am connected to a thing that has been an empathy machine for you.
Yeah.
And so quote unquote fans who have enjoyed my performances or notwithstanding, there's a gratitude for you being part of something that moved them.
Yeah.
And a chance to, I have had people come up to me and talk about how a show I was on helped them get through the loss of their father, or they were, thinking. So here's a crazy story, absolutely crazy.
We
story.
love those.
Yeah, it's a big one. So, yeah, okay. So one night before bed, as one does, when they're sitting on the toilet, they will check Instagram. Because that's what Instagram is for.
That's accurate, yeah.
It's toilet fodder. So I'm about to go to the bathroom before bed, and I'm firing up Instagram, and I see a picture of myself and Emily Hampshire from 12 Monkeys. I'm like, oh, that's fun. I'll read the caption, and then the opening caption was, I wanted to thank all the people that moved me on, and there was a bunch of different shows. It was like 12 Monkeys and a couple other shows that moved me, because tonight I'm going to take my life. And I'm like, wait, what? I had to reread it a couple times. Basically, this person was going, thanks for giving me a modicum of joy in my life on the shows that you guys were on, but my life is so unbearable that I'm going to end it tonight. And I was like, holy shit. So I immediately direct messaged this human. And now for the next hour and a half, I'm having a direct conversation with the person who just posted this, trying to get them to call a suicide hotline, trying to talk them down, because I was the only one there.
Yeah.
I happened to be there at 11 o'clock at night, and the fact that they connected to my show brought their plight to my attention, and I was like, I got to do something. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I got to do something. And so I found myself in an hour and a half back and forth conversation talking to this young person off a cliff. I think it worked. I was like, just at least sleep on this, at least in the morning. And then while it's happening, I'm Googling like suicide numbers and throwing them to them, and like, going, call this number. There are people out there. You're not alone. Just watch 12 Monkeys again. Just do something that isn't involving killing yourself. So I don't know how it ultimately panned out. I never heard from this person specifically again, but I did get them at least that night to promise that they weren't going to take their life. I kept them on the phone. It was one of those, like, every time I would write a message, I would wait to see if they were going to respond. And so it was just trying to keep them talking, because if I kept them talking, they hadn't done this very dark thing. So all that comes back to, I recognize the potency and power of story, because they are empathy machines, and they do connect to people. And this person was reaching out through the abyss, through the void, to connect to somebody, or else they wouldn't have written that. And I happened to be there at the time, wrapping it up to go to bed. So that's a story.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a story.
I'm really glad that you were there to say something to her.
Holy crap.
And the other thing too is letting these people on the TV into your homes that you automatically have a connection with them. I mean, we analyze, as we talk about the shows, we analyze what the character was thinking, why they did what they did, and we always have to preface by saying, listen, we understand they aren't real people. But there was a connection that was made there, bringing that character into our home, and that puts a nice perspective on it.
It's a reflection, right? Like, we see ourselves, for better or for worse, in these people, and so they allow us to examine our own relationships and our own shortcomings or strengths.
Mhm.
And so they are a bit of a mirror for us to pause and reflect and be moved by. Um, and they're important. For a long time, I spent a good amount of time after college and pursuing theater and whatnot. There was a moment where I was like, wow, people are jumping into forest fires to put them out. People are Doctors Without Borders. People are, like, it felt in many ways that what I do is very frivolous. And it's like at the end of the day, and somebody said, Todd, at the end of the day, that firefighter wants to put their feet up, pour themselves a glass of bourbon, and escape into a show,
Mhm.
and blow off steam and relate and laugh or cry or whatever it is that show is meant to elicit. Um, and so, we always talk about we are sacred fools, like we are noble jesters. Uh, that the power of storytelling is much more important than I was shortchanging it. I'm not saying that acting is the most important job by far, and knowing that I am just one piece of that puzzle in making a show. Like, so much is done before I ever get there, and so much is done after I leave. And as long as I don't forget my lines, hit my mark, and stay pretty, it I am doing my part to be part of that empathy machine.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it's necessary,
yeah, hugely, hugely,
especially now.
Yeah, exactly.
very much. Yeah, very much now. Yeah.
Tiffany, did you have a question?
Yes. So, of all the shows or sets you've worked on, do you have a favorite that you've done?
I have several favorites. Um, uh, Dale from The Riches. And all of them begin with D. Uh, Deacon from 12 Monkeys. Uh, and that was the last job that I did. I had a blast playing Dr. Draken in the live action Kim Possible on the Disney Channel. That was so much fun because I had just come from doing 4 years of 12 Monkeys, where, as I say, we whisper in basements. When you do genre TV, it's so funny because all these loud actors will be at craft services, like talking to each other and shooting the shit and being a-holes and whatnot. And then they say, action. And I came up through Second City, Chicago, doing sketch comedy, and I was up for SNL in '95, and so I'm a
Oh,
big,
wow.
loud, dumb dummy, and so I didn't get it, but it was like at least I had an at bat, and so doing Draken coming off of 12 Monkeys, just getting to the set and getting to be huge and grand and have blue veins growing in my face, and like big costumes and yelling Shingo, that was a hoot and a half. So those three Ds, Draken, Deacon, and Dale were big ones. Oh, and Dracula on Supernatural. I love playing Father Kieran. I'm currently working on something that I can't talk about yet, but I am having the time of my life. I've only been, I just started a short time ago. I can't announce it yet, but man, am I having fun. I'm having more fun than a 52-year-old should be allowed to have. It's one of those jobs where, like, how did I luck into this job? And it is super fun. But yeah, I love acting in genre TV. I love making the kind of shows, I mean, look, like the kind of shows that I
Mhm.
watch and the kind of fandoms that I have, I love being a part of them, having done like Buffy and Angel and all of those nerdy shows that I myself love. Um, but the I mean, Deacon was fun because I got to explore a character for 4 years. Um, And if you haven't watched 12 Monkeys, that should be your next.
Our next group.
I actually put that.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I'd put that on my list when I was looking up stuff to prepare for this interview, because we have a Schitt's Creek group too, and we love Emily Hampshire. So when I saw that you were in that with her, I put it down on my list that I definitely want to watch.
Okay, so she plays the Brad Pitt role from the movie.
Okay.
So in the movie, Brad Pitt plays Jeffrey Goins, and in the show, she's Jennifer Goins. So she's a female version of his role from that, and so she is it is a tour de force for her.
Yeah.
She plays an old version of herself. She plays a young version of herself. That show, I think, of all the genre shows that I've done, is the one I'm probably most excited to have been a part of. It is such a complete story. Talk about getting caught up in the drama of the characters. You guys will love that show. I don't want to take anything away from your Vampire Diaries, your original, because they're great shows. But 12 Monkeys is hard sci-fi. If you like Battlestar Galactica or stuff like that, you'll like 12 Monkeys. It's its own mythology. It goes amazing places, and it is literally voted one of the top sci-fi shows of all time. So I can't recommend it high enough, and I was lucky enough to be a part of it.
It's now on my list.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out.
It's really good, and it really starts cooking season 2. Season 1, sort of, they say, talk to our showrunner, and he's like, season 1's the pilot. Season 1 is let's get all the players on the field, and then we can really start cooking with season 2, 3, and 4. And we knew we were getting season 3 and 4 at the same time. And we also knew that season 4 would be the end. So when they started writing season 3, they knew they were going to be completing.
Yeah.
And so it pulls stuff from season 1, and it's just, the payoffs are unbelievably huge. We have the most rabid, loyal fans, small, because it was on the Sci-Fi Channel and not a lot of people saw it, but the people that did see it are so beloved. So I can't recommend that show enough. I can't recommend it enough.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
Please do. It's on Hulu.
Oh,
nice.
Oh.
It's on Hulu, all 4 seasons.
Okay.
We started tonight.
That'll be our date night show. That
it's really no. I'm telling you, you're gonna want to do a podcast on it, because you're gonna be like, okay. And we were lucky that it was not a binging show, because there was time for the fans to speculate from week to week. And when you binge a show, it's such a private experience.
Yeah.
Like, we're like, you're gonna do it now because it's on.
Right.
It's on. But I would encourage.
We have no self-control.
But I would encourage you to space it out. And it is that kind of show. Like, you go, oh, I got to talk about this with my friends. And I say this not just because I was on it. I say it because I would have watched it and been like, oh my God, have you guys seen 12 Monkeys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
it's nuts.
Kind of speaking in that same vein, do you have, not one you've been in, but do you have a fandom that is your favorite fandom to be a fan of?
Well, I am a Star Wars kid, like through and through and through. I was 8 years old when I saw it in the theaters.
Okay.
In 1977, and it changed everything. Yeah, so that's my hard, deep. My blood bleeds for Star Wars. I'm a Han Solo guy. I don't think you can see it. I have Han's blaster over there. And I got to write in the Star Wars universe for 3 years on that video game, and I've been to Skywalker Ranch, and
that's awesome.
It's been, so that's my biggest of fandoms. And then down the list, then you would go like Batman, and then you'd go Tolkien, and those are my big ones. Batman and Star Wars are the big pillars. And they probably, of the memorabilia that I own, it's mostly Batman and Star Wars, but then a lot of other things spill in. Yeah.
My brother won't let me watch Star Wars with him anymore.
Why?
He's a huge fan, and I never got into it until I was an adult. And I keep getting confused. I don't know why, between who Han Solo is and Luke Skywalker is. And he told me to get out the last time I asked him a question about
This has been a really fun chat. Thanks for having me.
That's pretty much what he said to me too. Pretty sure the exact words were "get out of my house," and that was it.
We are done here. I said good day.
We just have a couple more questions for you before we finish out, and I think Tiffany's got those.
Is there any currently running shows that you would love to be on?
Let's see. Currently running. I've auditioned for. I wanted to be on Sabrina. I would have loved to have been do an episode or two of Sabrina. That's a fun show. That's dark and nuts.
Oh my gosh! At first I thought you were talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Like what?
I am.
Oh, are you really? Oh,
yeah. The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix.
She's thinking about the really old.
I know you're thinking about the old one, but you said currently running, and so there's a show on Netflix called The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and it's fantastic. The best show on television of the last 10 years that no one's talking about is The Patriot on Amazon Prime. It's absolutely brilliant. I would love to do an episode of that. What else are we watching? Throw me some Ted Lasso. I'll do some Ted Lasso.
That's a really popular one right now. Didn't that sweep the Emmys the other night?
It did okay. It did okay. I would love to do like a big old epic fantasy. I guess they're doing a new Tolkien series, and then I would love to have done like Game of Thrones or The Wheel of Time, which is coming out. Something massive like that would be fun. You know what? I'm always happy to be a fan of something. I'm always happy to be a fan of something, and I'm always pleasantly surprised by the work that I get to do. I'm okay not being on shows, because sometimes if you're on a show that you absolutely love, you're going to get the scripts ahead of time, and then you don't get to enjoy them as a fan. And then I like making the shows that I'm making, because I'm then in on that as it's happening before they come out sometimes, and you get to watch the fandom grow with them and be a part of that, which is what happened with 12 Monkeys. Is like I got on season 1. I only did 2 episodes of season 1. I was brought on as a guest star, and then they turned me into a series regular from 2 on. When they sort of said, okay, if this show is going to work, it can't just be a 2-hander. It has to be an ensemble. And so let's grow the ensemble out. And that's what they did. They did with that show. And so what shows right now are we watching that I'd want to be on, baby? I should have said Patriot.
She knows you.
It's brilliant. We loved Legion too. If you didn't watch Legion, that was so good. That was only 3 or 4 seasons. 3? Legion. If you haven't watched Legion,
my husband really liked that show.
Holy moly, was that a good show? That was a good show.
Yeah.
I'd have to try that one.
He went through that one quick, I think.
Which one?
Legion.
Oh yeah. Legion is so good. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot, you know. Like I said, I've been fortunate to be on the shows that I am. The one that I can't tell you about, very excited to be on.
Will you be able to disclose that in November-ish?
I don't know. I don't know.
If you do, you let us know, because then we'll attach it to this when we publish it in November.
Yeah, I mean, like when I can talk about it, I'm not going to shut up. So, so if you follow me on the socials, you'll know.
We do.
Yeah, hide it under a bushel? No, I'm gonna let it shine. uh, yeah, it's a good one.
Is there any others you can tell us about?
Shows? Well, I have a movie that I was just in called Violet that Olivia Munn is the lead in, directed by Justine Bateman, that just was at Toronto Film Festival, and it did really well at South by Southwest. Um, and like I said, mostly because of COVID, I spent 2 years just writing. And so if you're interested, you can look up the trailer for a video game called Forspoken that I co-wrote. So that'll be coming out the game will be coming out in spring, but I was just a writer on that. I say just a writer. I recognize the value of writers. And then, I've just, things just started getting back to work. I did a couple episodes of 911 Lone Star that already aired recently. Those were fun. But yeah, and again, I can't talk about this one. So, and this one's taking up my time. So, yeah.
We're going to be stalking all of your socials to find out what that is when you start talking about it.
I was getting ready to say, do you want to share your social media handles so people
can
follow you? Or?
You can follow me on Twitter at Todd Stashwick, ToddStashwick. You can follow me on Instagram at TStashwick. It's just the abbreviated version. You also, if you're a nerdy person and you like nerdy stuff, I started my idle hands during COVID started a side business called Todd Stashwick's Nerd Circus. And if you go to thenerdcircus.com, you can see all the stupid things that I'm selling. They're fun. T-shirts. I have one T-shirts that are inspired by 12 Monkeys. T-shirts that are inspired by Supernatural. T-shirts that are inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. And again, I sell D&D dice. If you have any gamers in your family. And then I wrote this book called Mystic Libations. I co-created it with a man named Brandon Cleely, who used to be an Imagineer. And Brandon, if you like tiki drinks, Brandon was the art director, one of the art directors on Trader Sam's, the tiki bar at Disneyland. And so he was a fan of 12 Monkeys, found me on Instagram and did one of these. He's like, hey, let me talk to you. And we hit it off. And he's got a lot of nerddoms, but he had never played D&D. I'm like, well, let me be your ambassador. So we started playing D&D. And I was like, well, tiki drinks and I know Dungeons and Dragons. So let's start making tiki drinks for the games that we're playing. It's like, all right. And we did it a bunch of times and we're like, I think we're onto something here. And so we kickstarted and it's like over 100 recipes, but they're nerdy themed cocktails.
I like the design of that too.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But it's short stories as well as a playable D&D adventure. And there's really great art in it. And so, yeah, we kickstarted this and it did really well and then printed it up and we've been selling them at conventions and things and on my website, The Nerd Circus. So it's a lot of fun. And like I said, if you got a nerdy gamer in your family or you are one yourself, it's a good thing. It's a lot of fun. So I do that, and then I do a lot of streaming Dungeons and Dragons for charity. I do a lot with this charity called Jasper's Game, which is a suicide prevention organization, and we do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons to raise money for that with really fun people. Anthony Rapp, some of you may know him. He's on Star Trek Discovery, and a bunch of other people. We'll play D&D and then raise money while we're playing the games, and people watch and donate, and it's a lot of fun. And D&D scratches that theater itch for me because I gather people around a table and we tell a story to each other, and it's so much fun. So that's the top level things that you can find me at.
Just one or two, not much.
Just writing books and making toys, and
You like to be busy.
Like to be busy.
Yes. Well, it was so much fun talking with you, and we're going to make sure that all those handles and all the information for what you have going on shows up in the podcast. But soon as we know what your new project is, we're going to put that in there too. And we're going to promote the crap out of it. So we're going to be stalking you a little bit. Don't be worried. It's just us. It's okay.
It's why one is on social media.
And we know that you like stalkers, right? You married yours. So yeah,
I married one. We have a 23-year-old son and an almost 14-year-old daughter together.
Ooh,
yes,
my daughter just entering her teens. Yikes.
Oh, it's just great. No, we hit pay dirt with that one. She's the best.
I have 3 daughters and one just entered junior high, and
yeah, she's in 8th grade. Yeah.
Scary. Not because of her attitude, but just they're growing up.
Big bad world. My son is an adult, like bought his first car, gonna get his first apartment, all of that. Yeah.
Oh wow. That would make me cry.
Yeah.
I'm used to it though. Been with him for 23 years.
That's true.
You watch it happen in slow motion.
All right, I'm just gonna close this out real quick. And Fandom Family Chats viewers, we thank you for coming along with us. Thank you to Todd Stashwick for chatting with us. It was super fun and we laughed.
Absolutely fun.
It's always a good interview when you can laugh. It's always good.
Thanks for having me, you all.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to find out what he's up to, please stalk his social media and let us know the moment you hear the new project he's got going on and we don't catch it. And you can email us at familyfanclub2021@gmail.com if you have any questions about what we talked about here. We'd be happy to chat with you. And I'm sure that you can reach out to Todd on his social media platforms and he'll probably hang out or talk at least something.
I'll say hi.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll trade words about things.
So thank you for joining us and we will see you in a week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.